I feel like I can't go 1 week without hearing about gay roles and the straight people who are stealing them. Gay face, some call it, but not in public if they're smart. Look, I get it. In a time where we're all becoming increasingly aware of just how little control we have, we're just looking for any win, no matter how small. And dunking on James Corden is the only win that some people can get right now. But the argument over who gets to portray who is not limited to acting, and it's definitely not limited to the gays. No, dear viewer, I think your anxieties run much deeper. White people writing movies about segregation, women directors assigned only to female superheroes, actors playing other races, and at the center of it all, a passionate, very diplomatic debate about where the line is or whether an infraction has even occurred at all. What we need is a champion, some brave corporation to step up and lead us out of ignorance and into the light. But who could handle such a task?
Please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
The Oscars recently announced their new rules, and oh boy. You ever notice that the most important subjects always get debated under the dumbest pretenses? When we're talking about equal protection under the law for gays, the argument is over a cake. When we're arguing over sexism in the workplace, we all get to picture Louis C.K. jacking off into a plant. And of course, the battle for diverse representation in front of and behind the camera is now being waged by a TV awards show that doesn't matter, in a way that I think is not great. Lisa Simpson said it best.
You haven't changed at all. You're still evil, and when you're trying to be good, you're even more evil.
I don't understand.
That's it. The Oscars is Mr. Burns. That's my opinion. There is a little more, and if you think you already know where I'm going, I have a feeling I'm going to surprise you by the end of this video. Let's read these rules really quickly, just to get them out of the way. I want to just quickly say that I'm gonna spend a lot of this video talking about groups I'm not in. I know I'm kinda out of my lane on some of this. So when I talk about BIPOC, women, disabled people, or anyone who's LGBTQIA, just know that my intention is to discuss these issues with nuance and sensitivity, and not lump everyone together into some big generalized group. So anyways, I'm gonna call all y'all not white lady handy homos. You know, just to help this part go faster. Films must meet 2 of the following 4 requirements. A. Lead actor must be a racial minority, or 30% of all the minor roles are not white lady handy homos, or the main story and or theme is centered on not white lady handy homos. Number B. 2 department heads on the crew must be not white lady handy homos, 1 must be a racial minority, or 6 crew must be a racial minority, or 30% of the crew must be not white lady handy homos. C and D, blah blah blah, something about paid internships and job placement with the film's distribution, marketing, and financing companies. Look, I'm not really going to talk about those ones because I don't know much about that side of the industry. They seem fine, but what do I know? Okay, so why would I, a progressive individual, openly laugh at the rules in Section A and B? Before I say anything, let's check if it's even worth adding gasoline to the fire. Is this hurting anyone? Is it my place to be offended? On both counts, I would actually say yes. I think it's going to make at least gay representation in film worse, and it seems like it's going to have a negative effect on my livelihood. In order to explain how, I first need to talk about why I think the Oscars are poo-poo garbage. Every year, I put together a list of quality and acclaimed movies that receive no nomination in any category, just for fun. I like making lists, okay? Look, I love La La Land as much as the next white person, but come the fuck on. If that's getting 14 nominations and Swiss Army Man is getting 0, something is wrong with your categories, your voting process, or both. The distribution of wealth is more than a little off. If you want, you can replace Swiss Army Man with the movie of your choice. Midsummer, 8th Grade, Blind Spotting, Us, The Farewell. No nominations whatsoever, and those are just off the top of my head. The list is absurdly long. For scale, I put together this graph, which I think is supposed to be a simple task, but I found a way to make it take 4 hours. As you can see, the top 1% of movies account for more than half of all nominations received. My point is not who wins, very few people can win. I don't really care who wins. And my point is not which one movie is missing from the nominations, someone you love is gonna get snubbed. My point is that a whole lot are missing, way too many to ignore. It's almost like, and bear with me here because this is a radical idea, it's almost like the people voting for the movies aren't watching all the movies.
Oh God, what do we do?
It's okay. We just need to come up with all the nominees ourselves.
But I haven't even seen all the movies.
Todd, nobody has. That's not how they give out awards.
Welcome everybody to my brand new show where I find the world's prettiest dog. There, I choose that one because it's the most recent one I've seen and I can't be fucked. My decision is final. This is the dog. Eat a dick. You might be surprised to learn that the Academy is not a country club full of geezers. It's literally thousands of ordinary-ass people who happen to work in film. and a few geezers. They watch 6 movies a year just like everyone else. Yes, they work in film, but you'd be surprised at just how many of my cohorts don't really go to the movies. They like the making, not so much the watching. So when it comes time for the cinematographers to nominate contenders for Best Cinematography, they are under no obligation to watch, say, Mandy, or Monos, or A Hidden Life, none of which received nominations in any category, by the way. At this point, the process is already fucked, because the vast majority of good movies have already been filtered out due to this being a very arbitrary popularity contest. But to add insult to injury, a lot of people won't even watch all the finalists in their category. There is endless documentation of this. Personally, I've seen the DVD screeners the Academy sends out, collecting dust in people's homes. I've had Moonlight offered to me because the owner knew they were never going to get around to it. It just seemed like a lot. But what did you expect? These are all laymen. The Oscars is no different from American Idol, and it should be taken exactly as seriously. Because I work in film, people frequently ask me who I think should win the Oscar. I usually quip that I wouldn't wish an Oscar on my worst enemy. Of course, when I occasionally do rub shoulders with Oscar winners, I always congratulate them. And you bet your ass if I ever worked on a movie that won one, I would never stop bragging about it. I'm going on about how much I don't care, so clearly I must care a little. I usually advocate for ignoring useless, pointless things that have no use or point. I think talking about stuff breathes life into it, and I don't want to be the reason a stupid thing went trending. But when something gets enough attention, it passes a tipping point where ignoring it is no longer an option. Whether I like it or not, the Oscars have a tangible effect on the media I consume and the industry I work in. When I see a shitty new original song added to a cash grab remake, I know it's to qualify for Best Original Song. When I see a white savior movie like Green Book get a massive marketing push in December, I know it's because Moonlight's win put dollar signs in their eyes. Now is probably a good time to mention that Green Book, which won Best Picture, is denounced by the family of the black man it portrays. But hey, it makes the audience feel good, right? I mean, some of them. Alright, fine. So this is our big old movie competition. It's not the one I wanted, but it's the one we got. So let's at least try to get some good movies in there. Oh, what? The selected movies seem to disproportionately exclude queers, women, POC, and handicapped people? Maybe that's indicative of some larger pattern. Maybe we ought to question why that is. Maybe we ought to look and see whether the voting process is flawed, or the nomination process, or who does the nominating, or who gets to make the movies, or which movies get made, or which movies get pitched, or who's doing the pitching, or who is deciding which people pitch, which movies get pitched, which movies get made, which people make the movies, which people nominate the movies, which system we use to nominate, and which system dictates the winner that dictates who gets to do it all again next year. Oh, what's that? We're not gonna do any of that? We're just gonna cry like giant man babies about the whole thing? Okay, great. I can hear the counter arguments now. These are the movies that get made because these are the movies people want to see. I disagree, but I also not disagree. I disagree because the whims of executives, nepotism, and incompetence throughout the film industry mean that the discussion about which movies get made is pretty arbitrary, much like the Academy's voting process. It's not exactly a meritocracy. However, I not disagree that people want to see what they've always seen. In the same way that after I eat a lot of McDonald's, my body starts to tell me that that's normal and I crave McDonald's more often. So when someone places a salad in front of me, I obviously throw it across the table and say, "What do I look like to you, some kind of faggot?" Wait, where was I going with this? Oh right, just because we're used to it doesn't mean it's good, and uncomfortable doesn't mean bad. Queen and Slim left me a little frustrated and confused in parts, but I'm so glad that it exists. It's interesting and it's provocative and it does so many things well, and I still think about it, so clearly it did something right. I'll gladly watch Queen and Slim over a cookie-cutter movie like Green Book, which is not only problematic, but is also immediately forgettable. But Green Book gets nominated, Queen and Slim doesn't. Green Book's box office increases, and everyone involved gets a reputation boost and easier financing for their next movie. Queen and Slim gets none of the above. This silly, arbitrary award is having a measurable effect on which stories get told and who gets to tell them. So the Oscars don't matter at all, but they also matter a lot. More than I'd like to admit. Sort of like the Queen of England. Technically useless, but you're not allowed to ignore it. Alright, let's look back at these rules. You would need to be actively trying to fail at this. Look at this list of department heads. If not disabled or a racial minority, then 2 of these need to be at least women or gay. Well, the department heads listed include makeup artist, hairstylist, and costume designer. Not to perpetuate stereotypes, but I can attest that these positions are already largely female-dominated. And in the sets I've worked on, the men occupying these roles have been gay 90% of the time. And if even one department head is any kind of underrepresented racial or ethnic group, voila! Your blockbuster movie has already satisfied half the requirements you need. Also, I know this is an aside, but as an assistant director, this bugs me. They give examples of who they think are non-department heads, which include first assistant directors, gaffers, and script supervisors. Literally all of these are department heads. For those of you who don't work in film, the AD is in charge of schedule, safety, and actor extra coordination. The gaffer is in charge of lighting, and the scripty is in charge of continuity. Sure, scripty is a one-person department, but they're still the head of it. So I'm getting the sense that the people writing these rules don't know too much about how a film set operates. Funny, that. As for in front of the camera, Hollywood already has no problem casting a male and or white hero, and then throwing in a few minority and or female characters to give the impression of inclusivity. You might remember that only recently, John Boyega came out and said what we kind of already knew. Disney took advantage of his casting to have their cake and eat it too. They marketed him as a lead Jedi to build hype, even though he wasn't.
A black lead? That'd be a risky investment. International audiences don't like black leads, but put him front and center on the American poster. They'll eat it up.
And to add insult to injury, they sidelined him further in each subsequent movie. John Boyega isn't just pointing to a problem with Star Wars, but with the industry as a whole, and there are, of course, numbers to back him up. The latest Hollywood diversity report from UCLA shows that people of color occupy 20% of the lead roles in Hollywood, despite making up roughly 40% of the population. Women occupy 33%, despite actually being, hang on, let me check my notes here, half. And obviously, women of color sit in the saddest, loneliest part of this Venn diagram. The report does not cover disabled people, but we can assume the numbers are just as abysmal. If we accept the premise that female, POC, and disabled actors are on average no less talented than all the male, white, able-bodied actors currently working, then the only conclusion we can arrive at is that there is an inequitable barrier to entry. Maybe it's being upheld consciously, or maybe subconsciously, but it is there. These new Oscars rules may seem like they're applying pressure to remove this barrier, but the pressure they're applying wouldn't even be enough to get one finger into my lubed up asshole. What, too much? Too much. I also want to circle back to the hiring process, specifically for LGBT people, because I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to ask an employee's sexuality? So how the hell are they going to ensure they meet their crew quota? Apparently they're talking about random spot checks? Hold up. So I'm at work, I'm running around, I'm getting yelled at, we're 2 hours overtime, spot checker shows up. Excuse me, sir, can I speak to you over here for just a second? Hey, is it urgent? Because I actually really need to get to hair and make... Yeah, it'll be really quick, I promise. I apologize, I don't recognize you. Are you with the production? Yes, this is a set checkup, sir. I just need to ask you a few questions. Stand by for an ETA, stand by. Is this about COVID compliance? Because I'm supposed to refer you to our producer. No, I'd like a word with you if you have a moment. All right, what's going on? You gay, bro? Fuck right off, that is never going to happen. The people I work with frequently do know I'm gay, and most other people can probably figure it out, but I don't go around broadcasting it. Not everyone needs to know who I'm dating. Besides being redundant, these rules are unenforceable. But lest we relegate this all to the realm of science fiction, I want to tell you a story about Batwoman. Batwoman is a woman and a bat, I think. She's also gay and Jewish. In an attempt at inclusivity, the powers that be decided to cast a queer woman in the role. Naturally, Tumblr rejoiced, one would assume. I do not dare cast my gaze upon Tumblr, for it is said to contain a great and terrible curse that feeds upon the wit of men and consumes all sense of reason, until naught remains but a withered, wretched, featureless husk, able only to shriek. That's offensive! Where was I? Oh, right. Ruby Rose, Hollywood's leading and only lesbian, that's a joke, Kate McKinnon, please don't murder me in my sleep, was chosen. After a short period of celebration, thousands of people realized, oh hey, it's been a full 5 minutes since I last redirected my crippling self-loathing outward onto undeserving strangers, and they swiftly chased Ruby Rose right off of Twitter. Why? She can't play a Jew because she's not a Jew, and also, she's not lesbian enough. Okay, let's just get this Jew thing out of the way first. I'm a Jew, I don't give a shit who plays a Jew. We're not exactly underrepresented in Hollywood. Alright, now, the blame for this harassment campaign can be said to fall upon 3 distinct groups. 1. The alt-right trolls who no doubt joined in on the fun, many likely masquerading as woke and progressive. But these people are like fleas on a dog. They are what they are, and it's no use trying to argue with them. Just shampoo them out and be done with it. 2. The producers. By publicizing your queer casting, you disregard your employees' right to privacy, and you flatten their identity. You make willingness to disclose one's sexual orientation to millions of people a job prerequisite, thus inflicting scrutiny onto anyone who dares apply.
Let's talk hashtag Heroes So White. The numbers are rather startling. Why Doesn't Vought want diversity?
We've got A-Train, he's a black man. We got Black Noir. And we have a gay hero.
Really? Who in the Seven is gay?
Queen Maeve. Scoop for you, Maria.
But there is no evidence that the Batwoman producers actually leaked their casting requirements. And even if they had, capitalists are like dogs. Telling them not to chase a potentially profitable marketing angle is like telling a dog not to lick its crotch. Which leaves us only with number 3. Us, the queers and our allies who are so eager for proper representation that we forget that these are people's lives we're fucking with. Insisting that sexuality be clear-cut and publicized excludes people who are closeted and questioning, pansexuals and bisexuals, Timothy Chalamet. It neglects the positive cultural impact of straight actors doing gay shit on screen. I'm sorry, are you saying that Tom Holland's performance of Umbrella isn't the best thing to happen to the gay community in the past decade? Because I'd say it's right up there with marriage equality.
There's been a lot of controversy recently about whether straight actors should play queer roles. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think it's unfair to assume anyone's sexuality. I think that's first and foremost my biggest issue with that question.
Now, stop for a second and think about where we are as a society. How, to this day, we are casting white people to play Asian characters despite there being enough talented and bankable Asian actors to go around. How recently it was that blackface in media, as written by white people, went totally unquestioned. Well, by the white people. And how now, for the first time ever, racial and ethnic minorities are finally leading the conversation on what is appropriate and what is not in regards to their own portrayal. If you are getting mad about gay Jews not playing gay Jews, not only are you acting like the hypersensitive buffoon that Fox News says you are, you're delegitimizing the people who actually have a stake in this conversation. Because when we parrot all or nothing bullshit like gays must play gays, the straight people are listening. The Academy is listening. They're all desperately afraid of getting canceled, and they don't have the context to understand that this idea is more nuanced than the Twitter mob would have them believe. These new Oscars rules only exist because this is what they think we want. They've extrapolated them based on outrage and fear instead of curiosity and understanding. Now we need to decide whether we're going to reward them for that or make them wear a cone. It's on us. I've already established 2 things about these rules. 1, this diversity quota is so easy to satisfy that even the least diverse movies are already meeting it. And 2, even if they weren't, there's no reasonable way to enforce this. So, it's my interpretation that because of these things, the people making these rules don't quite understand the issue they're addressing, and therefore don't know how to solve it. Which leads me to... Okay, fast forward to 2024. It's Oscar season, and the new studio movies have been tailored to these rules. Nothing technically needs to change to satisfy them, but studios want to save face by really acting like they're buying into it. Let's look at the contenders. Live-action Disney remake of Pinocchio. The Blue Fairy's screen time is bumped way up so she can qualify as a lead. They give her a tragic backstory and a love interest. They also give her a new original song by Lizzo. Let's go with that. Also, Pinocchio's nose thing counts as a disability, right? Star Wars Episode 10. Halfway into the movie, a character is introduced just so he can say, "Oh, I'm not really interested in women." The other characters nod and smile. Rey says, "Good for you." The character departs and is never seen again. Historical drama, 1800s. Subplot about an interracial couple who fear being discovered under threat of physical violence. But in the end, they profess their love publicly and it's all just fine, I guess, even though that's erasing the real-life horrors of that era. And oh wait, that already exists! It's The Greatest Showman! Do you want more Greatest Showmans? Because this is how we get more Greatest Showmans. No, fuck you, I don't like the music. Stop asking me. The irony here is that a bunch of people will watch movies like this and, if we take The Greatest Showman as an example, they'll be like, "Look at this lazy SJW propaganda. The blacks are cramming into our movies." A black person didn't write this shit. I know, because I checked. This movie has 2 writers, both white. Director? White. Oh, what's that? It had 8 producers? All of them were white? Oh, you don't say. Every single one of these people greenlit a movie where they magically solve racism in 1850. Of course they're all fucking white! And the Oscars' new rules encourage this behavior. Completely unqualified, non-minority producers are going to foray into territory that they don't understand and they don't respect, because they feel like they're being forced to. And no, I'm not saying that you can't write a minority unless you're part of that minority. Go wild. Call Me By Your Name was directed and portrayed by straight men, and it's one of the most meaningful gay romances of a generation. But at the end of the day, the creators have to care, and you can't legislate giving a shit. Bring diverse voices into the mix, put them in positions of authority, and magic happens.
I mean, I thought it was interesting the way you dealt with women having sex in the film, because quite often it has historically been quite exploitative and it's all sort of the softcore porny side. How did you make sure to steer away from that?
Because I'm a woman and I don't want to be a perv.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just hire a woman to do it.
Change of
And
perspective.
she'll do a great job.
Yeah.
I think,
And a DP that's a woman.
yeah.
There's a whole scene where there's two dark men sitting in a dark jail cell.
Right.
And there's just a little peak of light. And it's a funny story. That was our first day of shooting. So that was the first day to go to the studio. And they were like, had money set aside to reshoot it. And me and Brad are like, that's what it's supposed to look like. I mean, at that point in jails in the mid-'60s, in the deep South, you know, wasn't no pretty light coming in the window.
Not only is a minority creator obviously more likely to treat a story concerning that minority with authenticity and sensitivity, but the mere presence and awareness of that person in the workplace makes their non-minority coworkers more likely to do the same. To that end, I appreciate that the Oscars are trying to create crew staffing requirements for women and racial minorities, but my complaint about these requirements is actually that they're too small. Oscars, you are scaring the studios into pursuing more minority content, but you are not pushing them to increase their behind-the-camera representation at all. You've got it all backwards. Drop the story requirements. Diverse crews will tell diverse stories all on their own. In production, bring us up to 45% women minimum, 30% racial and ethnic minorities minimum. That's the percentage of the leadership and the percentage of the total crew. If you're dealing with studios, you don't even need to go movie by movie. Just have them show that at least 45% of their yearly crew budget and headcount went to women, and at least 30% went to people of color. After all that, insist on studio-funded programs for training young writers, directors, and producers from these underrepresented groups. Mr. Oscar, do this right, and you may actually prove to be useful for once in your life. All this comes with a huge asterisk, which is affirmative action is hard, and there is no perfect way to execute it. But anyone who yells on the internet about what they think the problem is ought to offer some solutions. Think my ideas are bad? That's fine. Let's hear yours. And where do trans and disabled people fit into this? I think that conversation gets a lot more gray, and I have no informed opinion to offer. I'm curious to see what those communities say. I know some trans people are closeted, or stealth, which means there are privacy concerns. I'm not sure whether the same is true of people with disabilities. It probably depends on how we're defining disability. On the homos, however, I can speak with a little more authority. I vote, leave us out of this entirely. Hollywood is already crawling with us. I don't care whether a straight person plays a gay or the other way around. Both have already been happening for decades. And yes, I know, many Hollywood employers do still discriminate on the basis of sexuality. But what if I told you that a lot of those people are themselves gay? Here's the director of Love, Simon, saying he's seen it firsthand. So coming out in Hollywood is risky no matter what. Which is maybe a good reason to not coerce a bunch of actors out of the closet. Also, if you take for granted that a lot of Hollywood's higher-ups are queer, do you really think this oh-so-easy-to-censor gay kiss in The Rise of Skywalker didn't require approval from multiple gay people? Or the whopping 3 minutes of grandma-approved homosexuality in Bohemian Rhapsody? Or this weird blood pact thing between Dumbledore and Grindelwald? Oh yeah, JK, I can really feel the, intense sexual energy. All of these moments were manufactured to do the bare minimum and to be cuttable. So clearly, the homophobia that pervades Hollywood can't be fixed by just throwing more gays at the issue. The problems are a little larger than that. In my last video, there was one part that was a little contentious. Show me one good faith tweet from a dude with a feminist criticism of Captain Marvel, and I'll show you 10 that include death and rape threats to Brie Larson. A few people complained that I was gatekeeping. You can't criticize Captain Marvel unless you're a woman. Bitch, I never said that. Criticize away. What I said was, bruh, why you focused on the feminism? Take a quick break. Look around. If the attempt at feminism is really that bad, women will surely speak up, right? And if they do, by all means, join the chorus. But what if nearly none of the noise is coming from them, but from people you recognize as trolls? Does it tell you something that your fixations are their fixations? Your words are their words? If women can't tell you're not in the mob, and the mob can't tell you're not in the mob, what exactly makes you not in the mob? So now, if you're one of the folks criticizing the Oscars for being too woke, let me make it abundantly clear that you and I are not in the same camp. These new rules from the Oscars affect me personally. They affect my livelihood and the way people like me are represented on screen, which of course affects the way I'm treated in real life. And I am kindly asking all of you straight folks who are so offended by this to shut the fuck up. The Oscars are like a dog with fleas. I'm just trying to get rid of the fleas. What are you doing? Are you trying to light the dog on fire? If you're going to keep shooting off your mouth, you don't get to pretend like you're doing it on my behalf. You're clearly not. I'm an adult, I'm capable of speaking for myself. Here, watch me do it now. Dear Oscars, please leave us alphabets alone, at least the L's, G's, and B's. Circle back with the T's. This is a well-intentioned idea, but it's also going to put a bunch of shitty gays on screen that conservative viewers are going to blame me for. It's also going to put me in a really uncomfortable position in the workplace and potentially hurt my career prospects. Believe it or not, prejudice is still commonplace. I know, shocker, right? There are still people who would avoid hiring me because I'm gay, and if they did, I would never even know. I would just see a dearth of job offers and be left to wonder whether the economy is slow or I'm just bad at my job. Thanks, but no thanks. See, I'm a big boy. I have postage stamps and everything. My previous examples throughout this video have included black people and women, but at the end of the day, I don't get to be mad for them. And if you're not in those groups, neither do you. Not unless they ask us to. I know I've been trashing The Greatest Showman for its take on race, but also, come on, that movie fucking sucks. If you're a white, able-bodied man who thinks that encouraging more women and minorities in front of and behind the camera is offensive, do them a favor and let them say it. And if they're not saying that, maybe consider that they see something that you don't. When 2024 rolls around, if you don't like which movies get nominated, I have great news for you. It's just a stupid awards show. It doesn't matter. Hi everybody, thank you for watching to the end. I'm sorry this took so long. I have a feeling I'm gonna be saying that after every single one of my videos. I got myself a dinky little draw tablet, so that's what's up with all the extra drawings, and I am learning more and more that I have no idea what I'm doing. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already, leave a like, and comment what you think about this whole everything. Your comments give me a lot of inspiration for future material. Stay safe and Happy New Year.